And one of the things you and me talk about all the time is, heartland theory,
Yes.
Eurasia. You gave a good kind of explanation of the geography behind all of that just now, and how that you need to have all of those perspectives, Eurasia and Africa, in mind to properly control, the
Yeah.
planet, I guess, as now
Yeah.
the technocrats have always wanted to.
Yeah.
But we've now seen Russia and China effectively like forced into a powerful alliance due to their territorial disputes with the globalist cabal. You just said one of the reasons China's watching this so carefully is because they're nervous about new precedent being set on reintegration of former territory, which is
Right.
like they see the Ukraine and Taiwan situations as very,
Course.
very similar, which
Of
they
course.
obviously are.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering. And one of the big things we're seeing is, we're seeing Power of Siberia 2, that pipeline is going to get built
Yeah.
where, one of the biggest pipelines in the world is going to be pumping Russian oil from their biggest oil fields right down to China, not even through Kazakhstan or Mongolia, like directly into China. And we're seeing, this is like some of the biggest recoupling we've seen. Do you think
Yeah.
the U.S., like I view the U.S. as kind of having memed this reality, this alliance into a reality, because look,
Yeah.
it was going to happen based on this reaction, but strictly naturally, Russia and China are not natural allies.
Right.
So this is entirely, I think, a creation of, like we just saw, nonsense like Ted Cruz thinking that they can ideologically govern the world.
Yeah. No, I think, again, I think you're absolutely correct in this. It seems to me the key here of what we're seeing with Russia and China is it's the unification of the two classical geopolitical societies. What we technically known as the thalassocracies and the tellurocracies, the fancy schmancy words that designate sea powers and land powers. What if I told you there was a small group of investors who wildly outperformed the market? Well, there is, and you know exactly who they are. Corrupt politicians like Nancy Pelosi and establishment senators have been using their security clearances and exclusive knowledge to their advantage in the market for decades now. They know when sales are up. They know what earnings are going to be. They know about legislation, incoming Fed changes, you name it, a whole host of other inside baseball tips that gives them an unfair advantage when picking stocks. When these bigwigs make moves, odds are they know something. But thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? We can see what and when these people are buying. Not only do we get to see it in real time, but we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves perfectly legally and ethically. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. And according to him, there's no better way to beat the market. Now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself. And the interesting theory here is that, and we've talked about this, you've written about the societies that are built on this coastal elite cities and so forth, the societies built on the sea tend to operate by very different cultures than those that are built in the heartland, which it's fixed, right? Their heartland societies tend to be traditional because they're part of a land that doesn't change or is part of a seasonal rhythm, a cyclical rhythm. The land exemplifies permanence, which is reflected in its culture. And again, I think cultural anthropologists give some credence to this. It's theory. It's a very, very old theory. It's very old classical geopolitics. Sea-oriented cultures just tend to be very different. They're generally in flux. They love change, fluidity, because you got it. Yeah, exactly. It's part of being a very land-oriented, right? It's just the sea is constantly moving. It's got a hard center. I like the term astronaut to help us there. Astronautilus, right? It's astro is star, but the nautos is where we get nautical from, or navigation from. So the astronauts is floating through space, has no center, no gravity, like the sea. So the politics that tend to derive from these two contrasting spaces, land and sea, are often very different. But what's happening with Eurasia? To me, what's so fascinating, and I think you're absolutely right, and what's equal, the ironic fascination, is how we have basically created this by virtue of our own arrogance and incompetence. But the key here is we are seeing the unification of land and sea, because China, remember, is fast building up what may be the single most impressive blue ocean navy the world could have ever imagined. So our own Navy secretary said recently that there's no way that our Navy can even remotely keep up with China's warship building. I think they're now officially the single largest Navy in the world. They have 340 warships. We have 300. But they could triple that number in like 10 years. I mean, we can't even remotely compete with this. So this Russia-China alliance is, in fact, from a classical geopolitical conception of the world, this alliance, this Eurasian alliance, is uniting together land and sea power like we've never seen, like we never even imagined. And that will, by definition, I think that will be the official end, recognized all over the world, of the liberal world order. That's it. It's done. And that, ironically, will be Biden's lasting legacy.
China emerging historically, China, the Qing dynasty, these were land powers in East Asia, but it emerging as a sea power, that's so interesting. It is
It's
definitely going to really
unbelievable.
change the dynamic, because for those that don't know, to think about the thalassocracy versus the land, but think of that in the context of the last 300 years. That was ultimately the triumph of the British Empire, and
Exactly.
then the Americanist system with its powerful navy that we just talked about around the world, which ultimately the first challenges came. Look, we wiped out the Russian Empire through through the British communist proxies after World War One. Germany, we didn't fully destroy it in World War One. It was ultimately totally dismantled in World War Two, taken over by the communists. And those were the two land empires of
Yep.
Europe.
Yep.
And that is what resulted in the 20th century. That's really the main story.
The triumph of thalassocracy. 19th and 20th century were two thalassocratic centuries, and now with Russia as the number one exporting nation in the world, and China as the number one manufacturing nation in the world, with one of the most powerful land armies on the planet and one of the most powerful and growing sea armies on the planet, they're coming together and bringing a thalassocratic and tellurocratic society together in a way that I don't think we've seen in centuries. We really are entering in a whole new world.
And I think on that same front, on the home front, to maybe start wrapping this up, it's important to recognize that what Trump was doing and what we're doing with America First is we're bringing ourselves back into being our own land empire on the North American continent, which is what we are. We stretch across thousands of miles in this big coast with so much heartland. Do we really
Absolutely.
need to be this outward-facing sea power that just sends things super far away across the vast oceans that are next to us, or should we focus on our people and what we're doing here? And I think that's what people that watch this channel,
Yep.
I think that's what all of us here, I think that's a good explanation of what we're going
Yep.
towards in that context.
Hey gang, if you want to connect with more courageous patriots and start taking action and organizing, be sure to join my Telegram group. I post the latest breaking news I find interesting and chat with my favorite patriots around the country and even the world. Click the link in the description below and join the conversation today.